that was the first really big boom, was seniors taking it outside of the Northwest to these senior communities and taking over the tennis courts, which we hear a lot about that happening now. Hey, I'm Steve Paranto with Pickleball Fountain of Youth, heading to the Playhouse to get some action in.
Pickleball Fountain of Youth with Hall of Famer Steve Paranto.
I chose to move to Beaver Creek solely because I wanted to build an indoor facility for my friends to play in with me. Here you see, these are my buddies that are coming pretty regularly. This is why I did this. I just wanted to have fun playing pickleball with my friends. 2 courts, it's about 8 times more fun than having 1 court. You see the combination that you can play with. You get to be partners with 7, 8, 9 other people in a day. The people you play with, the camaraderie. I love showing this wall to everybody. It was one of the first things I did when I built the Playhouse. So many great fond memories, and I also have a special place of recognizing my father, Arland Ponto, and all the influence that he had on my life, and actually the influence he had on the sport of pickleball. A lot of great memories on this wall. Parts of it recognize my father, which meant the world to me, and who was also inducted into the inaugural Pickleball Hall of Fame. I have his plaque right here. That was in 2017. My dad was a really good athlete. All these sports that I have in this Playhouse kind of started because my dad introduced me to a million sports. Here he is bowling. Probably his best sport was a shooting pool. In our small hometown of Eatonville, if he wasn't on your tavern team, you weren't winning the championship. Like, here's a picture of my father and me. I'm probably 6 in that picture, and he's teaching me how to shoot pool. So I have my bowling alley upstairs, and I have my shuffleboard upstairs, and I have that's my karaoke corner.
Home brew.
That's how I relax in the evenings. Nobody else wants to listen to me, but that's why I said. So I'm good at weird things. As a child, I was a ventriloquist, and this comes back to Dad again. A little bit offbeat type things. I think it started when I was a kid. I liked magic, so Dad would take me to the Seattle magic stores, get good at certain magic tricks where I could fool my friends. And then at first, I wanted a ventriloquist puppet at a Sears catalog. They were like $11. And Dad said, I still remember, Dad, you're not going to have a doll, right? And I got good at it. Then Dad totally supported me and made my next 2 from a book that Paul Winchell wrote. But then I was doing talent shows. I entertained at Fort Lewis once a month. I was part of the entertainment troupe that would go to Fort Lewis. I was the only kid in the troupe. We had bands, comedians, probably dirty jokes that I didn't understand because I'm 12. Dad wrote my routine, got lots of laughs, but I wasn't in on all the jokes. Some of them were probably off color. Quite an experience for a 11 or 12-year-old kid, knowing these soldiers are going to fight in Vietnam, and I'm wondering in the back of my head how many are going to come back alive. So anyway, that was that experience. I took up unicycle riding in about 7th grade to see this progression of offbeat things. Here I am as Skinny the Clown. Nowadays, clowns scare a lot of people, and they don't like looking at that picture of me, but that was kind of a fun period. I learned a lot being Skinny the Clown. It wasn't such an easy gig because you had to be in character all the time you were driving to the show, which means, you couldn't flip anybody off or get pissed off, or you can't go to the show and drink beer and so anyway, here's my half-scale bowling alley. I'll see if I can throw a strike. It's actually harder than real bowling. Here we go. Got my arrows set up. See if I can throw a hook. Come on, baby. Oh, strike right on the camera. I was a PE teacher for 30 years, and I lucked out and found the right age group that I was really good with, and that was elementary kids. I got to open up 3 brand new schools, which was a dream to me. That means I got to order all my equipment. So kind of going back to my hobbies as a kid, I ordered unicycles. So I had a unicycle team at my school. I taught juggling, because that was a little bit different thing for PE teachers back then. And I taught hacky sack, footbag. I would come home from teaching school, visit my parents, and I go, hey, I just had so much fun teaching miniature golf in the gym. But you know what? Again, different kind of alternative sports. Well, pickleball you can see why I was attracted to pickleball. This was this different, funny sport, even though I was a tennis player. So for some reason, I've kind of always found those offbeat type things, and now it's cornhole. You can see my cornhole board right there. Dad and I were just a good team. I came up with ideas. I was the idea guy, and then Dad knew how to make them. The pickleball paddle, I was just complaining about these stupid heavy wooden paddles. 2 weeks later, he's got prototypes from floor paddling from Boeing jet airplanes. That's what he did. So, and when I mentioned that to Dad, I knew that he would figure something out. Really, it was just family playing on Bainbridge Island for many years. Then they knew it was great too. So they developed a product that they could sell in catalogs, wooden paddles and rules. And so PE teachers were teaching it. If you had a good PE teacher, they might be teaching you pickleball. So that was great. But it didn't really go beyond that. You would learn how to play in high school, never play it again because there weren't courts. Pickleball, 3 years ago, became Washington State's official sport. So on this wall, I have the progression of the paddles that I saw through my career of pickleball. That wooden paddle right there is when I first started playing in 1974, very similar to the paddle that I used, and I probably used that one all the way until 84. There you see like an early prototype of that paddle. We even had bolts stuck in it because that's from airline floor paddling, and those were just stuck in there at that time. And then that turned into ProLite, the paddles you see with the lightning bolt, which revolutionized how the sport is played and enjoyed. And then we go over to a paddle I designed for Onyx at that time. Table tennis grip was very popular, so I had a paddle that had a large hitting space and very small handle for your hand. And this paddle here, I had Governor Inslee sign that. It's hard to believe. I couldn't believe that pickleball would actually become a state sport, but it is the official state sport of the state of Washington. It makes total sense now. That small paddle there was just for fun. Dad was making little paddles. In fact, over here, you can see even a tinier one, and now lots of paddle companies make these. Dad made it so my daughter, who was a baby, could pose with a ProLite paddle, but now almost every company makes a little paddle, not to play with, but just kind of to put on the wall or something. Remember, I learned when I was young. I was a young man. 1974, so I was 18. This is my 50th year in pickleball. Yeah. So we were young guys. And what happened is us young guys got old and started to retire and move to these retirement communities in Arizona. So that was the first really big boom, was seniors taking it outside of the Northwest to these senior communities and taking over the tennis courts, which we hear a lot about that happening now. Anybody that's from the 80s, that said it was going to become this big, they're not telling the truth. Yep. Nobody had a clue. We knew it was great, but there weren't any courts to play on. Every time we would get in a conversation and talk about pickleball, like people just think, oh, that guy just plays this weird, stupid game. Those early times are good memories. I was a photographer back in my high school years, and I was a tennis nut. So taking pictures of these famous tennis players was really fun for me. I took all these pictures and developed them. And guess who taught me how to do all that stuff was my dad. Vita Skarolaitis posing for me. Martina Navratilova, Bjorn Borg, Rod Laver, Jimmy Connors. By the way, I copied Jimmy Connors' tennis swing back in the day. It was so simple. I love that swing. Billie Jean King, Stan Smith, real famous now for the Stan Smith tennis shoes. Eli Nastasi, what a great athlete, interesting character, fun to watch. Chris Evert. Here I am when I'm about 21 years old with my tennis idol from Seattle, Washington, Tom Gorman. At one time, he was actually #1 player in the U.S. He was the captain of the Seattle Portland Cascades, later became Davis Cup captain. And then, of course, I totally respected Arthur Ashe, one of my rackets I used in college that I competed with, which was the Arthur Ashe comp. This is my college bowling team. And so I was varsity for Pacific University, and we got to bowl teams like Washington State and University of Oregon and Portland State. Pretty fun experience. I got to bowl all the way till tennis season, and then I was on the tennis team. Here, this is another one of my idols. This is Earl Anthony. This is like the Babe Ruth of bowling. Well, my first 300 game, Earl Anthony's watching us bowl. I was so nervous. It's like batting in front of Babe Ruth. I still remember I rolled that first strike. I go, whew. And then pretty soon, I remember when I got to 6 in a row, I said to my buddy, if I get a 300, Earl's going to sign this. Well, I got a 300, and that was my first 300 game in front of Earl Anthony, of all things. You know, how many people can say that? Earl was really trying to be a senior pro golfer. People don't know this, but he was a professional baseball player. What a great athlete that guy was, and he died in an accident not that long after that. So that I really pride having that picture on the wall. Back in the day, you got a diamond ring every time you shot a 300. Now I think you're only allowed one in your lifetime, but some of these are also for 800 series. So three games in competition that added to over 800. That's about 10 times harder than shooting a 300. I love the Beatles. I was a big, in fact, you can see some Beatles stuff up here. I took these pictures of Paul McCartney and Wings in '76. I took this picture of George Harrison in '75. Bob Marley, got to see him before he passed away. I had to have a drum set that was just like Ringo's. So there's a picture of me over there in that corner with Ringo's Ludwig Black Pearl drum set. And nice thing about electronic drum sets is you can turn the volume down or up, and so I get to practice here. When I built these courts, I put my dad's ashes under the courts where we tap paddles. And my dad would love that because my dad was the good sport in the family. I got my competitive nature actually from my mom. Sometimes it's hard for me to tap paddles after a bad loss. Everybody knows what that's like. But my dad never had trouble with that. So I have that spot here just to remember Dad and his good sportsmanship. But you guys having fun today?
What was your dad's name?
Arland Ponto, right there. Yeah.
I'm just making sure I don't step there.
Yeah.